Part 8. Legacy of the Monster. The voices came first, distant and muffled through tons of rock, but unmistakably real. Not the hallucinations that had plagued him for centuries, not the memories of consumed blood speaking in his skull. Real, living voices, growing closer.
The map says it should be here. The old mine. They say it was sealed during the plague years, but there might be iron ore, maybe even silver.
Dracula, who had been lying at the bottom of the flooded chamber for perhaps a decade without moving, opened eyes that had nearly fossilized shut. Real voices. Real heartbeats. Real blood approaching. He heard them working at the entrance, far above. Modern tools from the sound of it, not picks and hammers but something that whined and roared, cutting through stone with terrible efficiency. The world above had indeed changed dramatically.
Careful with that. These old mines can collapse. And look at these markings, warnings of some kind.
Superstitious nonsense. Probably just trying to keep claim jumpers away. Besides, these symbols are ancient. Whatever they were worried about is long dead.
Dracula smiled in the darkness, his face creaking like old leather. Dead. Yes, he supposed he was dead. Had been dead for so long that death itself had become meaningless. But also alive, also hungry, also waiting with the patience of stone for exactly this moment. It took them 3 days to break through the initial seals. 3 days of Dracula forcing his withered body to remember how to move, how to hunt, how to be something more than a conscious corpse floating in iron-tainted water. His muscles, deprived of blood for centuries, protested every movement. His joints ground like millstones. But slowly, painfully, he prepared. When they finally broke through to the upper chambers, Dracula was ready. He had positioned himself carefully, just at the edge of where their lights would reach, visible enough to be seen but not enough to be understood.
Hello? Is someone there? Please? I'm trapped.
The footsteps stopped. Whispered consultation. Then, cautiously, they approached. There were 4 of them. Through the iron-rich water, he could smell their blood like different vintages of wine. The young one, perhaps 25, blood-hot with ambition and greed. An older man, 40-ish, blood-thick with experience and caution. A woman, 30-something, her blood singing with intelligence and skepticism. And another man, young but not naive, whose blood carried the scent of violence barely contained.
There's someone down there.
Impossible. This mine's been sealed for, the records say, at least 200 years.
Please. There was a collapse. I've been trying to find another way out. My light died days ago.
It was absurd, of course. No human could survive days in a flooded mine without light. But greed and curiosity are powerful forces, and the treasure hunters were already imagining explanations. Perhaps he had found another entrance, perhaps the collapse was recent, perhaps.
We're coming.
Dracula retreated deeper into the shadows, letting them approach. His body, starved for so long, began to respond to the proximity of blood. He felt his muscles tightening, his senses sharpening. The leather-like skin began to soften slightly, drawing moisture from the air itself. The young one reached the flooded chamber first, his modern light, not torch or lantern but something electric and brilliant, sweeping across the water.
Where are you?
Here.
From directly behind him. The boy Marcus, his blood whispered its name, spun around. For a moment, their eyes met. Marcus saw something that his modern mind couldn't process, a figure that looked mummified but moved, eyes that were ancient beyond measure but burned with terrible vitality, a mouth that opened to reveal fangs that had grown grotesque during the centuries of starvation. Marcus tried to scream, but Dracula was already on him. The first taste of blood after centuries was beyond ecstasy. It was resurrection, transformation, the very essence of life flooding into a body that had forgotten what life felt like. Dracula drank deep, feeling every drop spread through his desiccated form like rain on desert sand. Marcus's memories flooded in, a world transformed beyond recognition, buildings that touched the sky, carriages that moved without horses, devices that carried voices across vast distances. But Dracula was careful this time, controlled. He didn't drain Marcus completely, didn't kill him. Instead, as he drank, he gave back. His own ancient blood, mixed with the essence of hundreds of consumed lives, flowed into Marcus. The transformation would be slow this time, deliberate.
Marcus, are you all right?
Dracula let Marcus fall, unconscious but changing, and moved with newfound strength. The fresh blood had restored him partially, not to his full power, but enough. He flowed up through the mine shaft like liquid shadow, appearing beside the woman before she knew he was there.
Hello, Elena. Thank you for coming. I've been so terribly lonely.
She tried to run, but where could she go in a mine shaft? Dracula took her gently, almost tenderly, his fangs finding her throat with practiced precision. Her blood was different from Marcus's, cooler, more complex, flavored with years of education and cynicism. Through her memories, he saw more of the new world. Universities where women learned alongside men. Cities that never slept. Technologies that would have been called magic in his time. Like Marcus, he transformed her rather than killed her, sharing his blood carefully, creating rather than destroying. The two men had heard the commotion and came running, but they were no match for Dracula even in his weakened state. The older one, James, tried to fight, had some training from something called the military, but Dracula had centuries of imagined combat scenarios, and James's blood soon joined the others in Dracula's regenerating form. The last one, the violent one, Kyle, actually managed to wound Dracula, slashing with a knife that bit deep into flesh still not fully restored. Dracula laughed, the sound echoing through the mine like the celebration of some ancient god.
Yes. Fight. Struggle. It makes the blood sweeter.
Kyle's transformation was the most violent, his body fighting the change even as it surrendered to it. When Dracula was done, 4 bodies lay in the mine shaft, unconscious but changing, becoming something new. Dracula stood among them, no longer the withered thing that had waited in darkness but not yet fully restored. The blood had brought back his strength but also his hunger, not desperate starvation but refined appetite. He could feel his children beginning to wake, their transformations accelerating.
My children. My new family. You will be different from the last ones. Stronger. Wiser. More careful.
Marcus was the first to complete the transformation, rising with movements that were no longer entirely human.
Master! What have you made me?
Eternal. Powerful. Mine.
They all rose, one by one, their human lives already feeling like distant dreams. Elena touched her throat where the wound had already healed. James flexed hands that could now crush stone. Kyle smiled with fangs that had grown sharp and ready.
Come. Let us greet the new world together.
But as they approached the entrance, Dracula felt it before he saw it, the burning presence of the sun. He had been trapped so long that night and day had become meaningless, but now, at the threshold of freedom, it was daylight outside. Brilliant, deadly daylight.
Master?
Dracula stood at the very edge of where shadow met sunlight, remembering the agony of burning, the loss of his first children. His new children gathered behind him, eager to explore their new power, not understanding the danger.
The sun. Our ancient enemy. It waits outside.
But we're strong now. We can fight anything.
No. The sun doesn't fight. It simply is. And what it is means our destruction.
But even as he spoke, he noticed something. Where the sunlight touched the cave entrance, Marcus had accidentally extended his hand. It should have burst into flames, but instead, it only reddened slightly, like a mild sunburn.
Interesting.
The centuries of his blood aging, fermenting, evolving in darkness had changed something. His new children were not immune to sunlight, but they were more resistant than the old ones had been.
We wait for night. But first, we must discuss your future.
They gathered in the mine's depth, and Dracula studied his new children. They were magnificent in their transformation, stronger, faster, more beautiful in that terrible way that predators are beautiful. But he could feel their hunger growing, their need for blood becoming desperate.
You want to hunt.
Yes. The hunger is overwhelming.
It always will be. But you must learn to control it, not let it control you. The world above has changed. There are new dangers, new ways to be discovered and destroyed.
Through their blood memories, he had seen enough to understand that the world had become smaller, more connected. News of mysterious deaths would spread quickly. They would need to be careful, strategic.
Master, what are your orders?
Dracula looked at them, his new children, his second chance at creating a legacy. They were perfect in their imperfection, powerful in their newness. But he had learned the cost of attachment, the price of creating others like himself.
My orders? My orders are simple. You will serve my vision absolutely. You will be extensions of my will. You will never question, never rebel, never think yourselves my equal.
They nodded eagerly, the blood bond making them devoted, worshipful.
Because there can be only one true Dracula. Only one who carries the full weight of centuries, the complete understanding of what we are.
Of course, Master. We are your servants, your children.
Yes. My children.
He moved among them like a shadow, touching each one gently, almost lovingly. Through the blood bond, he could feel their absolute trust, their complete surrender to his will. Which made what happened next all the more terrible.
The sun is setting. Soon we can leave. But first, one more lesson.
He grabbed Marcus by the throat, moving faster than even vampire eyes could follow.
The lesson is this: I am alone. I will always be alone. Children are weakness. Attachment is death.
Before Marcus could even understand what was happening, Dracula threw him toward the mine entrance, into the last rays of dying sunlight. Marcus screamed as his flesh ignited. Not the instant immolation that had taken Dracula's first children, but a slower burn, his enhanced resistance making the death more prolonged, more agonizing. He tried to retreat to shadow, but Dracula blocked his path.
Master! Why?
Because you would eventually challenge me. In a decade, a century, a millennium. You would grow strong, grow ambitious, grow to think yourself my equal.
She fought, but centuries of starvation had taught Dracula efficiency. He threw her into the light beside Marcus, their screams harmonizing in a symphony of betrayal and agony. James tried to flee deeper into the mine, his soldier's instincts recognizing a battle he couldn't win. Dracula caught him in 3 steps, dragging him back to the entrance.
Please! We're your children! Your blood!
My blood. And I'm taking it back.
As James burned, Dracula felt the power returning to him. The blood he had shared with them flowed back through mystical channels, bringing with it their strength, their memories, their essence. He was absorbing his children, making their power his own. Kyle was the last, and he didn't beg. The violent one fought to the end, actually managing to tear flesh from Dracula's arm before being hurled into the dying light. His destruction was the most spectacular, his rage making him burn brighter, faster. Dracula stood among the ashes of his children, feeling their accumulated power flowing through him. Each death was agony, the blood bond meant he experienced their betrayal, their pain, their final moments. But with the agony came power. He was stronger now than he had been in centuries, filled not just with blood but with the essence of 4 transformed souls.
Forgive me, but I have learned that only solitude is safe. Only isolation is strength. I am Dracula, and I must be one, alone, unique.
The sun finally set completely, and Dracula stepped out of the mine for the first time in centuries. The world that greeted him was indeed transformed. Lights that weren't fire illuminated the distant city. The air carried scents of chemicals and machines. The very atmosphere felt different, charged with invisible energies. He climbed to the mountain's peak, his restored strength making the ascent effortless. From there, he could see the sprawling New World cities that glowed like fallen stars, roads that carved through darkness like rivers of light, flying machines crossing the sky like mechanical birds.
So much has changed. But I remain. I am still Dracula.
He thought of Marcus the scribe, who had been rejected as worthless. He thought of the monster who had returned for revenge. He thought of the prisoner who had spent centuries learning patience in darkness. All of them were him, but none of them were him anymore.
I am Dracula the Cruel. Not cruel by nature, but by necessity. cruel to others and cruelest to myself. I destroy what I create, consume what I love, remain alone by choice and design.
The wooden bird David had carved came to his mind one final time. Forever frozen in the moment before flight, wings spread but never able to soar. That had been David's tragedy, always reaching for what he couldn't achieve. But Dracula had learned a different lesson. Sometimes, the moment before flight is the only moment that matters. The eternal potential, never realized, never disappointed. He would forever be in that moment, powerful but restrained, hungry but controlled, capable of creating children but choosing solitude.
This world will know me. Not as Marcus, not as the rejected one, not even as the monster they buried. They will know me as Dracula, singular and eternal. I will walk among them, feed carefully, build power slowly. No armies of darkness, no dramatic revelations. Just the slow, patient accumulation of power and influence.
He paused at the mountain's base, looking back at the mine that had been his prison and transformation chamber for so long. Part of him wanted to seal it again, to erase any evidence of his emergence. But he left it open. Let them find the ashes, the warnings, the mysteries. Let them wonder and worry.
I am Dracula. The cruel one. The only one. And my story begins now.
He walked toward the lights of the new world, a shadow among shadows, a predator perfectly evolved for a world that didn't yet know it needed to fear him. Behind him, the mountain stood silent, keeping its secrets, holding only ashes and echoes of screams. The age of sacrifice had created him. The age of imprisonment had refined him. Now began the age of Dracula, alone and eternal, cruel and calculating, walking into a world of 7 billion heartbeats, each one a potential meal, none of them a potential equal. He had learned the ultimate lesson: power shared is power diminished. Blood given is weakness created. Children are future rivals. Love is vulnerability. He would be alone, forever and by choice. He would be Dracula, the only one, the cruel one, the eternal one. And the world would never see him coming until it was far too late. End of Episode 8, Legacy of the Monster. The Genesis of Dracula, complete.